I think just the speed to get educated is so much quicker. And it's kind of, I mean, that's every industry, right?
Yeah.
But specifically for our industry, what it's done is I think it's made it easier for people to come in. And if you have the right mentality, if you can connect with people and you're good with on the relationship side, you can kind of piece together those different things. But
All right, guys, we got Lucas from Winthrop Wealth here today. We're going to talk about making money and keeping money, right?
that's it.
That's the key, because a lot of people can make money, but what you specialize in is kind of maintaining that or making even more off it, right?
Optimization and preservation.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because you deal with high net worth individuals, right?
I do. But it's all about helping them live life to the fullest. And as you add more complexity, sometimes that's harder to do.
Right.
Yeah.
What are the qualifications to work with you?
It really depends. Like we have a soft minimum at about 2 million.
Okay.
So that means $2 million of investable assets kind of gets you in the door. And that's where it kind of makes sense for us from a cost perspective because our expenses are high. We have subject matter experts that are coming into the relationship. So about 2 million is kind of our soft minimum, but we have a lot of discretion to work with pretty much anyone who we believe to be a good fit.
Yeah.
And that's the most important thing, right? Like we want to be able to get shit done together. We want to have a productive relationship. We want to be engaged. Because at the end of the day, if we can't help you and you don't take the advice, then what are we doing?
Yeah.
Right? So, yeah, but I'd say most of our clients are business owners. So typically what we see is that a lot of their net worth is tied up in their business.
Right.
So high net worth, low liquidity.
Yeah, that's the thing with net worth, right? Because some people say they're worth like $1 billion, but it's all in equity on paper, and their liquid net worth is actually nowhere near that.
Yeah. Don't spend it until it's liquid.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of battle with it because I think liquid net worth is pretty important. You know, people say these crazy numbers, but they can't buy a house or whatever.
No, you can't buy a house and you really can't do much with anything that's illiquid, right? It sits there. But the interesting part about illiquidity, right? It's still part of your net worth. And so it sits in your estate. So it's the proper planning super important to make sure that, okay, if you're worth $1 billion, right? But let's say your liquidity is less than 10%. Well, you have this huge amount of net worth that you technically can't access.
Right.
Right. But you can do some planning from a tax perspective and an estate perspective to maybe shift some of that out of your estate, use some of your gifting exemptions. And a big key for a lot of, I'd say, business owners, especially if you're starting a business, let's say the valuation's potentially low today, but has potential to be high tomorrow, is how do we get some of that growth out of your estate?
Absolutely.
I don't want to give it to the government, and I know you probably don't either.
No.
I'd say they're not the best fiduciary of your assets.
There's about to be a lot of changes, right, with the new administration. So I'm sure you're getting ready for a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, it's always, there's a lot of noise. I don't think it's anything we haven't seen before, but you never really know until the documents are signed and
Right.
there's laws in place. One of the big ones was the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, which in 2017, that was part of Trump's administration back in 2017. That was due to sunset at the end of this year, end of 2025. So what does that mean? That means that essentially tax rates were going to go back up and the estate exemptions were supposed to go back down. There's still no perfect 100% clarity on the answer there, but we think that now that Trump's back in office, we'll probably see that extended, which means that hopefully we'll maintain this lower tax rate environment and the exemptions don't get slashed in half.
Yeah.
Because, you've seen everything with inflation and continued growth. Those exemptions, like they might sound large now, but they could go away tomorrow. And so proper planning along the way is super important.
Absolutely. Does any of the tariff stuff concern you? Apparently we're in a trade war now with Canada as of yesterday.
I think we're always in a trade war with somebody. Tariffs, not so much. I mean, it's interesting, right? So we look at economic data as backwards looking and market data is forward looking, right? So it's discounting mechanism. I don't really know. And I think that there's so many people who tell you, oh, this is exactly what happens when tariffs come on board. But we look at, the last administration and they didn't like tariffs, but they didn't get rid of a lot of them.
Right.
Right. So
that's what people don't realize though. They just associate tariffs with Trump.
yeah, but they kept a lot of the tariffs during the last administration, right? You just didn't hear about it. So I think the whole idea here is you focus on what you can control. Like we can't control if Trump's going to go and put more tariffs on China or
Right.
Russia or whatever, right? But what we can focus on is how we respond to what's happening in the economy, geopolitical events. How are we responding to that? And the only way you can respond to that is if you are proactively planning. right? So instead of reacting, and this is what we talk about a lot with our clients, is if you're reacting, it's because you don't have a plan in place. Like the reaction is that, oh shit moment,
Right.
right? But if you had a plan in place and they sat down with you and they said, or somebody sat down with you and showed you like, okay, here's your best case scenario, your worst case scenario, and here's kind of like the median case. So we know that if the market's going to take a dump and it's going to sell off 25%, we're going to be in a recession for a period of time or whatever, right? That if I told you everything's going to be okay for you, are you going to be that worried? Versus I don't have a plan. I watch my portfolio every day. Every fluctuation up or down is giving me some type of emotional
anxiety.
anxiety, and I'm reacting to it. And so I turn on CNBC and I hear, some warmongering person talk about how, the world's going to fall apart and we're all screwed.
Yeah.
And they're trying to elicit some reaction from you. The reality is it's mostly noise,
Right.
right? The markets are pretty efficient over time. And so if you're a long-term investor, what it comes down to is how are you planning along the way? How are we building a dynamic plan that we can respond and not react to what's happening in those variables that we cannot control?
Yeah. How far out are you planning out? Because I feel like stuff changes so fast these days. And you hear about these spreadsheet warriors that say like, oh, by the time you're 65, you'll have 10 million in the bank.
Yeah.
Like, is that even worth planning that far ahead?
I think it depends. Like it's so unique to you as an individual, depending on the makeup of your financial life and just what's happening in your life in general. But I'd say we're really focused on 3 to 5 years of planning. And the reason why is you tend to have major shifts and changes in what you want every 3 to 5 years. And so let's just take an example of I'm 34, I'm not married, right? I don't have kids. But if I met someone tomorrow and I dated and got married in 3 years and started a family in the next 5, well, what I want today is going to look very different in 3 to 5 years if that scenario played out.
Yeah.
Right. Same thing with right now, if I was to start a business, if that business is going to be sold in 5 years, well, my priorities have changed. They've shifted, right? My financial life or my financial makeup looks a little different. And so 3 to 5 years is really what we like to focus on the shorter end of the stick. Now we can project that out as far as our clients want them to, or they want to see it. But the reality is it becomes more linear, right? So linear projections over a 20, 30 year period, it's just how realistic is that?
Right.
There's so many factors that go into that type of planning that can make such a significant shift over a 20, 30 year period. And so if we focus on 3 and 5 years, like that's where we can really be productive.
I agree.
And we can be more dynamic. We can be more responsive.
Yeah. I've heard some high level people even go as down to 1 year.
Yeah. I mean, look, 6 months, 1 year, it depends on how fast things are moving in your life.
Yeah. In the AI industry, for example.
AI. Yeah. So planning, like I'd say most of what we're doing, if it's on the business or kind of individual planning side of things, it's probably at the low end 1 year. But 1 to 3 years is really the sweet spot. And then that 5 years would be kind of okay, we're taking a little bit of a gamble and going out a little further. But the only reason we do that is we're forecasting out and we're looking at, okay, how is that going to impact the tax side of things, whether individually or on your business, and then the same thing on the estate. So you kind of want to get an idea of what it could look like. But 1 to 3 years is really where we can get shit done.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So less than 10% of people in your space are under the age of 35.
Yeah,
do you see that changing in the future? Do you feel like part of that's a trust thing because of age comes more wisdom, people think?
It's interesting. So I will say I'm 34. I think I mentioned that. My brother, who I work with, is 36, so 2 years older. We've been age discriminated against since we started, right? I started in this industry when I was 22, 23 years old.
That's young.
Yeah. And my brother about the same, maybe 2 years after me. But we were going to conferences and we were doing all this cool stuff and we were trying to build our platform, and people, there's a lot of ego with advisors in our industry, tons of ego. If you ask my brother Max and I what we're in the business of killing advisor egos. Because once you kill advisor egos, you can get down to like the brass tacks of how do we help people? How do we help them live life to the fullest? Right. But anyway, so starting out young, like we got a lot of kind of age discrimination just because we were young. And typically this industry prides himself on experience. I've been doing this for 30 years. What do you know? You've only done it for 10, right? I don't think that I do think that there is something to be said about experience. I think experience is absolutely important. We have a multi-generational team, so we bring that experience in-house across different ages. But at the end of the day, it's about how are you able to help the end client? And with technology, we've been able to bridge some of that experience gap a lot quicker, right? So if you've been in this industry for 30, 40 years, well, the technology in our industry has only really been really good for the last decade. So perfect timing for me when I came in, right?
Yeah. You say technology. What are you referencing with that?
I think just in general, so it'd be everything from financial planning technology, the investment management kind of screening. Like, good example would be you used to have to talk to somebody who worked for a mutual fund company, right? To be able to get all the data, all the statistics, all the different analytical information that you wanted to know if that was a fund that you want to invest in, right? Now, at that, about 10 years ago, maybe even 15 years ago, it was really primarily a relationship business, right? Oh, I have my wholesaler. They come to the office. They'd meet with me. They'd tell me why their fund is so amazing. They'd introduce me to their portfolio managers. And then now that's just become so accessible online, right?
Yep.
Like the tools have gotten so good and providing all the information. So you don't necessarily need to meet with those people anymore to get the information that you did back then. And so I think just the speed and accessibility to information and shifts and changes in what we're doing, whether it's from tax planning or investment management, the information's at your fingertips. And then also like being able to use these tools to educate yourself, right? I don't have to go take a course, at a college to learn about a certain financial planning topic, right? I can go on YouTube and learn about it. I can go and access these materials online. And so I think just the speed to get educated is so much quicker. And it's kind of, that's every industry, right?
Yeah.
But specifically for our industry, what it's done is I think it's made it easier for people to come in. And if you have the right mentality, if you connect with people and you're good on the relationship side, you can kind of piece together those different things. But at the end of the day, what I say is it's 100% about the team that you surround yourself with. And so personally, I don't consider myself, I'd say I'm not an expert in anything, but I have the expert on my team.
Yeah.
Right. I'm really good at managing relationship. I can understand what you want and I can go get you the answer, and I'll bring that tactical person into the relationship to execute. And so I think that shift has also started to happen in our industry, where typically it used to be again, we talk about big egos. It was, I'm the guy, right? I'm your guy, or I'm your gal. I'm the person who is, your investment person, your financial planner. I own the business and I do all these other things. And that's just not it doesn't work. It's not realistic anymore.
Right.
There's too much complexity, regulation for one person to be able to do all those things extremely well.
Yeah, I agree.
And so you kind of need specialization. And the specialization in a team structure that you can collaborate is essentially where we've focused, and we've had some tremendous success in building that kind of cultural collaboration with subject matter expertise, where advisors can be really good relationship managers, but they don't have to know everything about everything, right? They have to be dangerous enough to talk about it. And like, if we're having a conversation, to say, okay, I think this is the direction that we need to go, but let me pull in my subject matter expert who's going to go really deep.
Right.
And then you kind of become the person who has to kind of distill that down into something that a client could digest, because it can get very technical.
Yeah. Hiring wealth advisors for me has been a game changer.
Yeah.
I'm part of Do Wealth. Have you heard of them?
Do?
Yeah, Jim Do.
I don't think I have. No.
They're not like a huge one, but what drew me to them was they have a mastermind every quarter. So
cool.
I get to meet all their other clients.
Yeah.
And I'm the youngest one. So like I just get to learn like a sponge.
Yeah.
And, yeah, it's worth it. They help me buy a house. They help me mitigate taxes. And it saved me more than I paid, if that makes sense.
There you go.
So like I pay $72K a year, but they've saved me more than that.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like an ROI almost.
Oh, absolutely.
And some of the connections I made in the mastermind, have led to huge podcast guests, sponsorships, and future money down the road. So
yeah, that's amazing. What's really cool about our job, or my job, is I get to work with extremely successful people, right? And you get to kind of see, okay, well, what's made you successful?
right.
And everyone has in their own right, their little touch and what their little secret sauce is. But it's funny because when it gets down to like the actual what makes someone successful, they've done 3 things really well, right? They know how to get work, they know how to do the work, and they get paid, right?
Yeah.
It's like every business does those 3 things. And so you take that and then you put it in any industry and you start to see, okay, well, what outside of that, like how do they become so successful? And you get to see all these movies. And then for me, what makes it super fun is like, if I'm talking to you and you're my client and you're struggling with something or you're trying to figure something out, the tax side of things for the type of business that you're working in, I might have another client who has some very similar situation and we've have a something that we've done for them that might be interesting to you. And so either maybe connecting you guys so you can talk about it, or even trying to say, okay, well, I've seen this movie before. Here's something that might work that worked for somebody else.
Right. Because you've seen a lot at this point, 10 years in now, right?
Yeah. So I'm about, well, more than 10 years.
12. Because you said you're 34, started at 22.
Yeah. About 12 years.
Quick math.
Yeah.
I love it, man. Are a lot of your clients getting into AI or like any future tech stuff?
Yeah. I mean, AI is everywhere. I think it's been around a lot longer than people actually think it has. Well, I know it has, right? It's just when are we able to interact with it in a way that is meaningful? And I think that's probably been over the last few years, and why you've seen AI is, I haven't gone to a conference or turned on the TV and haven't seen something to do with AI in the last like 2-3 years, right?
Facts.
And so yeah, I think AI in general, we get a lot of questions about it and how it's applied to what we do. For us, I think it's just making us more accurate in the way that we're able to forecast. The machine learning of how are we putting goals into a systematic format and tying that into potentially like cash flow and investment advice. It's just helped us get to that next level of something that might have taken a month to do can now be done very quickly.
Right.
And so the speed to get answers or do the work has definitely increased.
Yeah.
I think that's everywhere, right?
It is. It's going to be interesting to see how it enters your space if people start using AI for like investment advice, stock advice, crypto advice, stuff like
I think
that.
they already are. Like,
I'm hearing about it. Yeah. I haven't seen any mainstream ones, but
yeah. And the problem is like we're in such a regulated industry. And so AI in a regulated industry needs to be really regulated.
Right.
And right now, like, all these large language models, they're looking at certain applications for industry, but more so at the institutional level where they can keep it in-house. But I bet there's someone out there who's going to be a disruptor and comes up with some model that works extremely well for financial planning, especially for mass affluent, which is like, I don't need to talk to a person right now. I just want some general advice and here's all my information. Can you ingest it and give me an answer or some recommendations?
Yeah.
I think that is a huge application that you'll start seeing probably in the next 1 to 3 years.
Or any of your clients asking about crypto?
Yeah, they'll ask about crypto. It's funny. We talk about like the shit coins, right? Like
Yeah, the meme coins.
meme coins, shitters, whatever you want to call them. Meme coins are crazy. I mean, it's the Wild West, right? It's kind of like you might in some cases you might want to go to the casino and hit the roulette table, and the odds are just as good, maybe even better sometimes at the casino. I don't know.
Last night, oh my god,
Yeah.
the market tanked last night.
And so like the volatility is crazy, right? And it's pure momentum. Like most of these meme coins, like the community is where the value is, but the community can blow up in less than 24 hours.
Right.
And so like it is the Wild West. I think that you'll probably see some stability in some of the larger, more scalable coins, but the meme coins, like it's a gamble. We get client questions all the time about meme coins. My son, who's 10 years old, like put $100 in something and made 10 grand in an hour. That's just, it's definitely a disruption to what we do.
For sure.
Because you create this, I don't know if you'd call it like a FOMO effect.
It is.
But it is a FOMO effect, right? Like you hear about all your friends who got into some meme coin and made a ton of money. By the time you hear about it, it's too late.
Yeah.
Right.
Way too late.
The old adage in investment management was, if you hear the shoe shine boys talking about a stock, it's time to sell it.
Right.
Right. So it's kind of like that telephone game. I don't know how some of these people, I've done some research. I don't think they sleep.
They don't. If you sleep, you'll lose usually.
Yeah,
Yeah. And I think it's like 97% of people on pump fund lose money.
I believe it.
And I know stocks are similar, but it's just crazy with crypto because it happens so much quicker.
Oh, what was it, the term being rugged?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that won't happen with a regulated stock overnight.
No, it might go down, but you're not going to blow up the whole company overnight, right? And if it does, there's at least there's some type of like value, right? Whether it's a building that the company owns or their equipment, what's the value in a meme coin?
Nothing. You could argue that for not even just meme coins, for most of crypto.
Yeah. Yeah.
Other than the top 5-10 coins, there's not much value, you know?
And so it is a wild west. I do think that it's something that, here's where I see a massive application for crypto, right? Money movement, right? And if they can figure out the regulation to do this in a regulated way, the speed to be able to move and convert different currencies is insane, right? Like if I wanted to send $100,000 via wire to, let's say, to Greece, right?
Yeah.
Not only do I have to go to the bank physically, right? I have to go to the bank. I have to convert my US dollars to whatever currency it is that I'm going to be sending, right? There's a fee for that. It's probably going to be pretty high. And then when I send the wire, if it's an international wire, it could take a couple days to actually be deposited and arrived in the account.
Sometimes a week.
Sometimes a week. I did one to Turkey once, and it was almost a month.
Jesus.
Yeah. And they say, well, we've never lost an international wire. I know it's not lost, but it's just in limbo for a month. And so I can open up my wallet on my phone. I can convert from Bitcoin to Ethereum to Solana in a second, and I can send that money wherever I want quickly.
Yeah.
And so you look at the speed, the ability to convert currency and transfer money using the crypto currencies. It's insane. And so everything's going to have to catch up to that at some point. So I do think that there are applications there that are going to have significant impact on how we transfer and convert currency.
Agreed. And potentially no capital gains tax on US based crypto companies. That's exciting.
Yeah.
That's huge.
That'd be great.
Yeah. There's a lot of day traders and people in crypto. 3.5, I think, trillion market cap right now?
Yeah. Something crazy.
Yeah. 3.5. It just passed NVIDIA. So I believe it's number 6 overall. I think it passed gold too.
Yeah.
Pretty nuts. It might hit number 1 one day.
I wouldn't be surprised. And again, like it could also blow up, right?
Well, it does blow up. It's just cyclical. So it's hard to predict it. They say every 4 years, but who knows? Now with institutional money getting into it, I'm sure a lot of funds are getting into crypto now.
Yeah. I think not only institutional, but I do think that most governments are sneaky and they have a lot of exposure to all these other assets, whether it's for, just participation or whatever other reasons, like they're all involved.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you ever recommend like gold or silver to your clients? Small little percent?
Yeah. I think it's always good to hold some gold. Right. Yeah. It's funny. I got that question the other day when we were sitting upstairs and the question was like, should I buy gold? And should I have the physical gold or should I buy the ETF? Right. I think it really depends on what you're trying to accomplish and how it fits into your portfolio. Gold historically has been the stable, right? And I think, honestly, personally, I own the ETF.
Yeah.
It's easy, it's cheap, but I also have heard some like pretty interesting things when it comes to silver, right? Silver, what I've heard is, so I have a friend who said that he buys a physical commodity, right? He holds silver. He's got it in safes all over the place. And he says, well, silver is in every single electronic that's made, right? We know that, right? It's a big commodity when it comes to especially electronics. And he said that if you look at the silver contracts, people who hold silver but haven't taken delivery of it, if they were ever to call and get the physical asset, that there's not enough silver that's been mined to be able to produce it.
Whoa, they oversold it?
This is a theory, right? I don't know if it's real. I haven't done my diligence on it.
Okay.
But I could believe if you think about it, right, how much silver is being utilized, and if you look at almost every single electronic device that's ever been created has silver, right? You look at the AI graphics chips, the GPUs that they're building, like silver is like one of the key components, right? every TV, every laptop, cell phone. So there's a lot of silver being put into goods that we're manufacturing, but there's also a lot of people who hold silver who don't actually haven't taken physical delivery of the assets. So it's interesting when you think about things like that and say, oh, well, if that's real, then there's a big problem.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what kind of scares me about certain things like crypto. It's like, okay, like, what do I own? Right. It's not something physical.
Right. That's why I like to see it physically. I'm a fan of like real estate and actual gold, but at the same time, you can't have a ton of gold because how are you going to transport that? So,
I mean, you could, right?
You could, it'd be annoying, but yeah.
But walk around with a
Floyd Mayweather.
Yeah, there's a couple states that you can still pay. You should look this.
You could pay in gold in some
Yeah,
places?
so there's a couple states that still accept gold as legal tender.
Really?
Yeah, so you can literally go in, I think gold and silver, and you could shave off a piece of gold, and the state law requires them to accept it as legal tender.
Wow.
Now, whether that's true and the establishment will do it, that's a whole other question. But yeah, there's states that still accept gold and silver as legal tender.
That's interesting.
Which is pretty cool.
I've also heard the conspiracy theory that there's gold and silver on other planets and asteroids and stuff. So when we eventually get into space, there'll be even more. So it would kind of lower the value technically.
Yeah, well, they talk about these like the asteroids that are solid gold, right? And things that are lurking around our solar system that are just, it's more gold concentrated in one little rock than we've mined in our whole Earth. Right?
Crazy.
Yeah, so if we're able to, if Elon's able to get those rockets up there and go mine these stars, that's some crazy shit.
I mean, we're looking closer and closer. That might happen within our lifetime at the rate they're going at, him and Bezos.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's super impressive.
Yeah, it's wild. I think, interesting to think what that would do to just a general like value of a lot of goods, right? If we were able to, the cost to go mine it is one thing, right?
Yeah. So
you have to factor that in. It's kind of like, you look at a lot of, it's cool. Like I've been here in Park City, and I know you've met some of the longevity folks and you've interviewed a bunch of them where we talk about this idea of, longevity market and how are we factoring in our age and living better into, lost my train of thought.
Longevity market, biohacking, living longer.
Yeah.
Inflation maybe, or?
Oh, the cost. Yeah. So the cost, right? So we talk about the costs of manufacturing. And so just like we were talking about gold and we have to go up and get it if it's on a star, right? There's a cost of going and getting it, which means that the manufacturing cost to build those rockets and get up there is super high, which potentially means that the impact it would have on the value of something that we currently have wouldn't be significant to like destroy the value, right?
Got it.
But this whole idea of manufacturing is the longevity market. We look at these biohackers, the billionaire biohackers that are innovating, and they're doing these things that cost, $100,000 or $1 million a year that they're spending on their longevity, right? Well, they're pushing the edge in a good way. Whether some of the things they're doing are contentious or not, that probably are. That's okay, but they're doing it. They're first movers, and so if they're able to continue to do that, what we start to see in the back end is the innovation in the manufacturing of these things. Whether it's a product like a light bed or some type of therapeutic device, it gets better. And when manufacturing gets better, it also drives costs down, right? Because the first time we manufacture something, like manufacturing is going to be super expensive.
Yeah.
We don't maybe we have to innovate in manufacturing too in order to reduce the cost that it takes to produce a product.
Makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, you're seeing that with Brian Johnson. He spent like millions a year, but he's gotten it down. So he sells it on the site for a couple $100.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah.
So like the first person or the first company to do it, like they're innovating. Innovation costs a lot of money, but if they're able to get some type of traction, right, they're able to start reducing the cost and it becomes more accessible to the general public.
Yeah, you're seeing that with space travel. It's super expensive to go right now, but they'll probably get it down over time.
Yeah.
And one day you and I will. It's too expensive for me right now, but I think it's like $1 million or something, right?
But do you want to go up there?
Let's let some people go first, let's
just like the people who went down the bottom of the ocean. I'm like,
I would never do that.
I'm like, that's I don't belong down there.
Yeah, that one, I don't know. That one's not for me.
Yeah,
I'm already worried with all these plane crashes going on. I'm not trying to do anything risky these days,
I know.
you know?
Yeah.
Well, Lucas, it's been cool. Where can people learn more about you, get in touch with you?
They can hit me up on LinkedIn, email address, websites, winthropwealth.com, Instagram, Winthrop Wealth.
Cool.
I'm always on the socials and hanging out online. So absolutely happy to talk to anybody.
Yeah, shoot them a message, guys. We'll link your stuff below. Thanks for hopping on.
Hey, thank you.
Absolutely. Check them out, guys. See you next time.